Brenda here from Tamarindo, and I want to personally invite you to join me for our third annual Encuentro, a restorative retreat to Puebla, Mexico, April 30th through May 4th. This is an incredible experience for badass mujeres who need a break. Immerse yourself in Puebla's cultural attractions, build community, and leave recharged with tools to thrive. Perfect if you're seeking renewal and intentional connection in a supportive and uplifting space. The dates are April 30th through May 4th in Puebla, just a couple hours away from Mexico City. Space is extremely limited. We're looking for 8 travelers. And if you bring a friend, you each can save $400. Go to tamarindopodcast.com and find Encuentro from the menu. Once again, that's tamarindopodcast.com and search Encuentro. Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast,
hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
and me, Delcy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show! All right, welcome to another episode of Tamarindo. Today, we have Micelle Zacarias, an award-winning journalist and LA-based reporter dedicated to highlighting impactful stories and amplifying underrepresented voices. And we also have Alex Zaragoza, journalist and TV writer, whose work has appeared in the LA Times, Vice, HuffPost, Voices, and others. Plus, she's a writer on Primo and on NBC's Lopez versus Lopez. So she's done a lot of different things. But beyond the fact that both of these badass mujeres are journalists, they are also cancer survivors. And they've been really intentional about using their platform to talk about their journey so that more Latinas can be prepared to be self-advocates and to discuss some of the health inequities that lots of people face. You might not know this, Delcy, or maybe you do because I know you're a news reader, but there's been a disturbing rise in cancer around younger people. Like younger people are getting cancer, which is disturbing. But there's also some positives in that, treatment is improving. So people are living longer. There's more ways that people can survive. But all that to say, we could all hear these powerful stories so that we know the signs, so that we could advocate for ourselves, and so we could advocate for our community so that we are detecting things early and getting the treatment that we need. So that's what's coming up on the horizon. But before we do all that, Delcy, let's do our Que Pasa. What has been on your mind lately?
Okay, I just want to comment really quickly, folks, and, TMI, but get out there and get your colonoscopy, folks. I just want to say get your colonoscopy because from what I've been reading, the rise in cancer a lot of times is colon cancer. Right. I did this, everyone. I want you to know I did my colonoscopy and I came out the other side safe and sound. So you can do it. You can do it.
Yes, in all the ways possible. Que bueno, that's good to know. And yes, that's basically, well, this is still March. March is also Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. So it's timely. It's timely. Well, what else has been on your mind, Delcy?
I've been thinking a lot about how pop culture changes and how narratives change in mainstream culture about you, about your identity. And in particular, I'm talking about everyone who grew up, maybe you guys grew up around the same time as me, you were 90s kids. And there was a lot of messages, I think, that the things that our family did, right? Some things we did culturally, some things we did for survival reasons, some things were more related to being an immigrant in the United States. But some of the things that we did, the clothes we wore, the music we listened to, the restaurants that we went to, these kinds of things, I think a lot of times they were sort of labeled as like maybe not being luxurious or not being high class enough or something that was worth talking about or preserving or reporting on in the mainstream culture. And I think a lot of us got that message. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Brenda, but it feels like lately, there's been a shift where people are talking about like Mexico City is a world-class city, for example, or lots of people are talking about going to Antigua, Guatemala as like one of these like World Heritage sites as a place of importance. The clothes that we're wearing are starting to be like seen on runways, for example. The restaurants, you know, we've had some Michelin star Mexican restaurants and Central American restaurants popping up in major cities in the United States, and even some of the more like quiet things, like the way that our family would reuse a lot of our, like, let's say like a sour cream, you know, Tupperware or whatever.
Like, I can't believe it's not butter because it's not butter.
Yeah, because it's never butter. It's never
It never
butter
was. It never
yeah.
never tried to be butter. It's salsa.
Or like how
It's
our parents always had like the yogurt cups would have like little plantitas in them eventually and things like that. You know, that now is like a sustainability culture thing that people are starting to do. Even like the botanicas of the past, right? The herbal remedies, that kind of like communal care in the past was seen as kind of like something that was not important. And now you see across the United States, people talking about this kind of important homeopathic medicine and things like that. And so I'm sort of getting the vibe that this whole time I knew it, you know, the little girl in me smiles, like we knew it. You know, we knew that the culture was beautiful and vibrant and important and luxurious. We knew it. And so, of course, there are problems with how this is like happening. You know, obviously, we all know like the people are not getting paid appropriately and all this kind of stuff. But I want to just point out that there's a little bit of like joy for me and that idea of like, yeah, that's right. Like we deserve to be acknowledged for the beautiful elements of the culture, I think.
Yeah, it's like we're in style. Estamos de moda. Like,
yeah, exactly. We're trending.
The things that we do are trendy. And when you were talking about earlier, this like almost like there was a shame before, right? There was a little bit of a shame in like some of the customs and practices because they didn't feel mainstream. They didn't feel accepted. They felt there was like a cloud of shame. As you're describing this, I'm thinking about one of the greatest things that I ever got to do is that I would spend maybe about every other summer in Mexico with my grandma. And one of the years I bought one of these, you know, beautiful blouses with the, you know, Mexican embroidery. It was very beautiful. Now you see them all the time, right? But then you don't really see them. And I wore it to school. And I remember this girl who was like, she was saying, "Oh, where'd you get that?" But in a way where she was mocking me. You know, it wasn't really like, "That's cute, I want it." It was not, it had that shame. And I remember I didn't want to wear it ever again. Flash forward, if any of you ever happen to stumble upon our YouTube, because they are out there, you see that I wear those shirts now all the time. And and I love wearing them now. But that's sort of like that experience is a reflection of what you're describing, right? That now it's está de moda. You know?
Yeah, it stays with you. Like I remember growing up Guatemalan, we ate black beans, right? And boy, did we eat black beans, Brenda. It was like three times a day, endlessly. You know, you would ask your mom for like, let's go buy food outside. And she would be like, there's food in la casa, but specifically there's beans, black beans.
Hay frijoles en la casa.
Yes. And I remember that it wasn't just people from outside. It was also other Latinos who were from different other countries outside of Guatemala, who a lot of times would be like, if I brought lunch to school and it had black beans, there would be like, oh, like, ew, like, what are you eating? Like kind of a, you know, like I remember my mom used to make me like a kind of like a torta with like frijoles revueltos inside. So this is like a sub sandwich that has like black beans in it with like sour cream and cheese, and it's super delicious, guys. Like I'm gonna eat it now. And I just remember being like, yes, like this is my lunch, you know, and having people like making comments and looking over and all that kind of stuff, which is how I really related to that scene in My Big Fat Greek Wedding when she's like, I have the normal sandwich. And now, I mean, could black beans be more acceptable in the United States? Like everybody who's on a health kick is over here eating the black beans. So I just want to say, like, an ode to those little girls, that you were right the whole time, and glad we stuck with it.
Yeah, I
Wearing
love
those
that.
shirts.
That's a wonderful reflection in Que Pasa. I love that. All right, so transitioning now to our fantastic conversation. So let me tell you a little bit more. So we're going to speak to this. We kind of already talked about why we think this is important because there's this rise in cancer. So yeah, I just want to thank both Alex and Michelle for their vulnerability. They talk about, obviously, we're talking about butts and breasts, okay? We're talking about these heavy duty things and the experiences that they went through just trying to get to a diagnosis and the self-advocacy. But also because they're both journalists, they've reported on this, like they've reported on the rise in cancer, the importance of early detection, and the health inequities that we face as Latinas and the overall Latino community. The Latinos are the largest uninsured group, and then of course beyond that, there's also this hesitancy to push back. You're like, the doctor's wearing that white coat, they must know something. They're not. Then there's language barriers, and then there's no Latino doctors. So yes, there's a lot of different things that contribute to medical bias and the challenges that we face. So with that, let's hear from Alex and Michelle. You're gonna love this conversation. The other thing I really loved is that these journalists had not met each other, so you see the vibing happening in real time. And so I was also really happy. Like Tamarindo will make you make a friend in real time. I love it too. All right, so let's hear from Alex and Michelle now. So I want to welcome you both, Alex and Michelle. Welcome to Tamarindo. So good to have both of you. Long-time follower, first-time interviewer. So good to have you both. Okay, I want to start with first, each of you briefly sharing what it was like to get your most recent diagnosis of cancer. And I know I have to mention that because I know, Michelle, this is your second time battling cancer. So I want to start with you, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about your experience getting this diagnosis. What was that like? Walk us through it. Give us that overview.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked a lot about it. I've written about it. I'm a journalist, and I think that was the way that I decided to cope, by writing and continuing to document the journey. But I think what was really frustrating for me is that I knew something was wrong, like many, many months before my diagnosis. And the official timeline was really like 9 months prior to my diagnosis. I started having some pretty severe symptoms, enough that I went into see a doctor at Kaiser, which is where I was insured at the time. And I said, hey, I would like to get a full cancer screening. And she just looked at me straight in my face and said, well, why would you need that? It's been over 25 years since you had cancer. And internally, I had to make a decision at that point and say, all right, I'm switching insurance providers because what I'm not going to do is sit here and have to fight for something that seems like very basic and regular advocacy for myself. So that actually delayed my process a bit because I ended up switching over insurance providers, which meant that I had to find a new primary care provider, get a new authorization for a GI. And to be really frank with you, the GI waiting list out in Southern California is insane. It's months and months. As soon as I got an authorization, they're like, great, we can put you in 3 months, which is absurd, right? And so I waited an additional 3 months after I got the authorization. And then by the time I got there, I was pretty close to 84 pounds. And yeah, I was withering away. And I remember, because I said, I've been looking at research. Some of the symptoms that I had overlap with autoimmune disorders like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. So I was like, hey, I've been doing some research on this. Maybe it could be this. And the doctor was like, great, we'll schedule you for colonoscopy 2 months out from now. And I just started crying. I could not keep it together in that moment because I just knew something was really wrong. And what was weird is I hadn't quite got into the cancer bit yet. I hadn't quite wrapped around my head that could be a reality again for me, because it just felt so not unlikely, but what are the chances that I could have this again 25 years later, right? And he ended up, being nice enough to have someone sub out for him. So I ended up getting the colonoscopy like a few weeks later, to like about a month later. And we went in. The prep was really strenuous on my body because I had a blockage in my digestive system that I didn't know about, which was a tumor. And when I got out of there, I just like woke up, and I remember really frantically wanting the answers right away as soon as I woke up. And I looked at the doctor at the foot of my bed, and I was like, "Did you find traces of Crohn's?" And he just looked down at his chart and like in one beat was like, "No, we actually found a tumor." And there was no time to process, no landing pad, nothing. And I always tell people there's not a good way to announce something like that. I'm happy now looking back that I found out right away and not through some like medical chart via email and had to sit a week, because I've heard so many stories like that. So I think it was a terrible experience, but ultimately, like, I had to claw my way to that answer. And then once I got the answer, I think it was just so much to process at once that I just didn't have a moment to like hesitate or breathe or think about what it meant.
Yeah. Thank you so much for walking us through that. And I think, Alex, you share the experience of documenting, sharing having this cancer experience. You're sharing it with your audience. Walk us through that. Tell us about your experience getting to the diagnosis, and why it was important for you to also share the way Micelle has shared.
Well, it's like, I know it's so much sometimes, and I literally talked about this yesterday with a friend, but for me, the process of finding out I had breast cancer, stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma specifically, was actually started in a different situation, in that I was working on my fertility. I was going through fertility treatments. I had been trying to get pregnant with my partner, and I did get pregnant. I got pregnant. We're so excited, and I had a miscarriage. And having that miscarriage was, it was so difficult. It was really hard. We really wanted this. And so I did what I think a lot of women do, is just like, I threw myself into like, but why? How did this happen? What do I need to find out about my body? What's wrong? There's something wrong here. I need to find a doctor that's going to help me. And in the process of going through that, I I had started seeing like a homeopathic doctor, like a naturopathic doctor. And I was kind of going through wherever I could find answers. And one of those doctors was also a breast specialist, because my primary had previously had told me that I should see a breast specialist, especially because I already had a previous condition called a pituitary adenoma, which is a small benign tumor that grows on the pituitary gland. I've had it since I was in my early 20s. I've taken medication for it. It didn't, like, at the beginning that was rough, but it really kind of, once I was on medication, I was fine. But she was like, it can affect the breast, it can affect fertility, it can affect all these different things. So you should see the breast specialist. So when I saw the breast specialist, she did find that I had a calcification in the milk duct, and said, check back in 6 months. Let's see you again in 6 months to see if it's gotten worse, if it's got better, because it could be really a lot of things, right? So I'm thinking about that on top of thinking of like, why am I miscarrying? Why am I having so much struggle getting pregnant? So there's all these like mounting things. I get to the 6-month mark to get my mammogram and ultrasound. And it's very similar, Michelle. They were like, sorry, we don't have appointments, right? It was here in Pasadena at a hospital here in Pasadena, the Jim and Eleanor Randolph Breast Center. And so I was there. My actual breast specialist was at City of Hope. But they worked together, City of Hope and the Jim and Eleanor Randolph Breast Center. They kind of worked together. And so I'm down the street. So I was like, okay, cool. But that's where I'll go. That's where I've been before. but I on the phone they're like, we don't have appointments, sorry, we can't see you for another 3 months. And I was like, well, the doctor said it has to be at 6 months, so you need to find something. And they're like, well, we don't have anything, we can't do anything. The soonest we could do was early January last year. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what it is. And like, I think the thing that a lot of us do happen was like, well, if it was really urgent, I guess they would make the most urgent appointment. They would find a way. I've learned that is not what happens. I've learned the hard way. So at the point did go and, when I did go and get my, mammogram exam and stuff, by then I had already shown some symptoms. There was the orange peel skin. If you Google that, listeners, river, it's like when the skin on the breast is like red, it's raised, and it has like the texture and feel of orange peel almost. It has a look of it, the texture of it too. And I saw that. I saw some swelling, and I was just like, okay, clearly there's something wrong here. I did the exam, and it was so funny. I laugh, whatever. But Michelle, when you're like, oh, I'm so glad I like found out this way. I did get the fucking app notification, girl. I was like folding laundry, watching Love Island with my boyfriend. We're like, just whatever. And of course, it was something I was thinking about. I wonder when I'll get the notification. I wonder when I'll hear back, assuming I'm going to get a phone call or something for something like this. And I get the notification, and you read those notifications, and it's like all like medical speak. And it's just like, this language that I don't fully understand. I'm trying to like parse out. But what I did see was like level 5, high risk of like malignancy. So of course I like lose it. I'm like, I have cancer. I think I have cancer. And I'm like freaking out. I'm crying, and I'm like surrounded by socks and watching people make out and on TV and crying. And it's just like such an insane moment. And yeah, so once I got that, and then the next day I got the call and they explained things to me further, then it was just like, and the next test, and then checking the other breast and do it like, and because the Jim and Eleanor Randall Center where I was first being seen, I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this. It was like, I like locked in so hard. And I was like, what's the student's appointment? Where do I need to go? And the doctors at City of Hope was like, transfer everything to us. You are not going to mess with any other hospital. We'll take care of you here fully. And I was like, great, where do I need to go? I will drive anywhere. I will drive 10 hours. I will drive 20 hours. I don't care where I need to go. I need this, like the next follow-up, the next biopsy. I need the biopsy to be done right away. And they're like, great, you could go to Irvine. Take me to Irvine. I love Irvine. Let me go to the Spectrum afterwards. It's fine. We'll do it. And so, and it was because initially when they were asking for the biopsy, they wanted me to wait another 2 months or so for the biopsy. In 2 months, God knows, especially if I'm at like level 5 or whatever. So thankfully, I got in at the Irvine location of City of Hope's Irvine location, and that was like about 2 weeks later. So then February 27th is when I was officially diagnosed with breast cancer. And yeah, it was a lot of fighting to make sure I got that diagnosis, that it was seen as soon as possible, that the doctors were giving me all the information I needed, leaving out the information that was too much. I was like, I can't handle this. Having to make a decision on the spot when, because the reality is chemo is going to, if I was already dealing with fertility issues, chemo was going to decimate my possibilities. So having to decide on the spot if I would want to prolong treatment, or so I could try to retrieve more eggs, or if I just wanted to go for it. And at first they said, well, you could wait a month and you could get more eggs and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, if you're saying it's safe and it's fine, I want to do that to try to improve our chances. We still want to have a family. We still want to have a baby. The following appointment, the next day, they were like, based on everything we're seeing, like, you'll die. Like, they made it very clear. If I wait 1 month, it increases the likelihood of not surviving. So I had to make the choices of like, well, no, I need to live. If I want to be a parent, first I need to be alive, right? So yeah, that was the process there. It was really rough, but then that thing happened where you just, okay, now there's no time. I was buying stuff. I was like, what do I need to buy? I need to buy a chemo bag. I need to research. I need to do that. I just like locked in and it was just dove into it. A week later, I was in my first round of chemo, 1 week after diagnosis.
Okay, let's talk about the importance of self-advocacy. So from both of your experiences, it sounded like, I mean, it was essential that you be advocating for yourself, that you be demanding to see who you need to see sooner than later, and not relying on, not just deferring to the health professionals, asking the right questions. So maybe we can start with you, Micelle. Like, what do you want listeners to take away about the importance of self-advocacy?
Yeah, well, like I said, one of the points that I related to Alex with on is the fact that we both had to basically kind of lock in, right? And like jump into this overdrive mode. I think the part where we differentiate a little bit is that like I had to keep like basically advocating for myself even after my diagnosis. It was really hard to get in an appointment with an oncologist. It was really hard to get people on the phone. It was really hard to get people to move the process forward, to the point where I remember I was calling up, the clinic every day because they hadn't scheduled my initial follow-up post-diagnosis. And my partner finally got tired and pulled up, like drove up to the actual clinic and was like, you guys need to put her in the books right now. And like, I'm really grateful to have had a support system throughout this process, because this was really difficult emotionally, physically. Like, the last thing you want to think about is like paperwork and appointments when you're kind of going through this process. So making sure you surround yourself with like good people who know how to advocate for you, who know kind of the logistics of the things that you may need, I think was like a huge, huge thing for me. And I had my partner, I had friends from back at home in Chicago who literally dropped everything and flew out and created like a schedule where they came in not only to caretake for me, but to support my partner as well. And that was so meaningful, and that was so important. And that was like a huge privilege to have. And I think the other part is that in my case, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer at the age of 34. And colorectal cancer was previously considered a cancer diagnosis for much older adults. But we're seeing that the trend is in the last several decades that people under the age of 45 have doubled in rates for colorectal cancer. And it is now the leading cause of cancer-related death for younger individuals and adults, only closely followed by breast cancer. So we're at this point in the conversation where we need to stop treating this like a cancer or cancer that only affects certain older demographics or elderly individuals. And even if that was the case, that's not an excuse, right? We can't keep delaying tests and diagnosis. We have to really encourage people to do uncomfortable things like get colonoscopies. The only really other alternative that would have been possible for me to get an early diagnosis based on the a timeline is if I had decided to go into the emergency room, which is absurd to think about now, because I could have easily gone in, said, I'm feeling so much discomfort, so much pain. An x-ray would have showed, a scan would have showed, the tumor was like sizable. So it's really unfortunate that we are in a society where the system is so oversaturated that we are not able to get in timely appointments, that we're not able to get in the stage or the help that we need early on, because the key to being treated is early stage diagnosis.
Okay, after everything this year has thrown at us, we deserve to end it on a happy note, like we're ready for a holiday. So listen, Alma from Alma Explores just dropped a very cute Christmas trip, November 29th through December 4th to Strasbourg, France, home to one of the oldest Christmas markets in Europe. We're talking twinkle lights everywhere, mulled wine in hand, festive stalls, storybook streets, like full-on romanticize your life energy. And no, this is not a rush, chaotic group trip. This is slow travel, wonder, snack, sip, repeat. Now, here's the best part. There are only 6 spots. So if you're thinking about it, don't overthink it. If you book by April 30th, you'll get a little holiday magic from Alma Explores. 1 bottle of champagne waiting for you in your room and 50 euros to spend at the Christmas markets. To get this deal, you must mention Tamarindo when you book. And yes, monthly payment plans are available because Alma Explores loves options. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Go to almaexplores.com and click upcoming trips and you'll see Strasbourg there. So once again, go to almaexplores.com and select upcoming trips. And Alex, I know that you've also, in addition to sharing your story, and also I should have said this earlier, that I really appreciate your vulnerability in telling us that how you arrived at this diagnosis, because that's also very deeply personal. But I know something that so many listeners can relate to is that journey of trying to get pregnant. And that's another, I've heard so many experiences where there's that overlap, the breast cancer with the attempt to get pregnant or while you're pregnant. I mean, gosh, that's just such a extra load to be carrying, and how you were ultimately forced to make a really difficult decision because of the situation. So thank you for sharing all of that. And in your reporting, what are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of the need for self-advocacy, or just in general about some of what Micelle shared, that there's so many younger people also getting cancer?
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. But yeah, Michelle's totally right. I think pretty much across the board, younger and younger people are getting cancer. I know when I speak to my oncologist, when I speak to, all of my entire team, and they have been seeing more and more young people in their 30s. I was 40. I was 40 at the point of diagnosis, which is they used to start testing, or they start testing you at 40, because they say like that's the youngest that we start testing, because it's not something young. They thought 40 was doing the early detection. That's not no longer the reality. The reality is, and there's studies and there's proof to show that it's younger and younger people are being diagnosed with cancer of various forms. In terms of advocacy, I came to realize so many things in the process of going through it, but also then doing my reporting, in that the amount I did have to argue, I had to like move my treatment. I had to really fight to be seen and make sure I was getting the treatment I needed in a timely manner. And I was very fortunate, because then when I go to City of Hope, because again, Michelle's correct. Like I was like, I'm incredibly fortunate that one of the best cancer hospitals in the entire world, literally not just the country, the world, is a 20-minute drive away from me. That is just something that's not possible for so many people. And the people that most, suffer because of it are people of color, are people that are living below the poverty line, or even just lower middle class people. It's just very, very difficult to access that. And, hospitals like City of Hope and, and others offer things like transportation. They offer certain things to help patients that are going through there. But that, again, also requires a level of advocacy, of going to your doctor and being like, I need to speak to the nurse navigator. I need help financially. I have no way to get to here. All of that sometimes requires so much of a hard thing of asking for help and being like, can't do this. I can't access this. I don't have a car. Or I don't have help. I don't have whatever it is your situation is. And so the advocacy comes in all forms. I know through my reporting that what we found was that Latinas in particular, when it comes to breast cancer and other cancers as well, it's not that we have the higher rates of cancer. It's that we are more likely to diagnose at a later stage because we simply do not go to the doctor. We are very busy, especially women. There's levels of, you're busy, you're raising your kids, you're taking care of whatever. We put our health aside so very often, and so much so that it costs us our lives when it comes to cancer diagnoses. When you could have maybe got on a stage 0, stage 1, even whatever. So many women are coming when they're finally going to the doctors. Latina women, they're getting stage 4 diagnoses because they're having to wait. And that comes for, like I mentioned, there's, childcare, there's family issues, there's work, there's fears of, if they're undocumented, that they're going to be targeted.
There's lack of insurance.
Lack of insurance.
Latinas are insured. Yeah.
Can you take a day off to go to the doctor? Like there's so many obstacles that are placed in front of a Latina to get just to see by the doctor. Then once you're at the doctor, there's obstacles there. Does the doctor understand what I'm saying? If there's language barriers, is the doctor taking my case seriously? Is the doctor giving me the best care possible? Are they sending me to an institution that's going to be able to help me? Or are they sending me anywhere because they just aren't thinking about it? They're like, this one's, go ahead, just go there. There's so many things that happen. And that a lot of it we just don't know, because sometimes we go to the doctor and we expect the doctor to be giving us the very best care that they can, they're using their expertise to give you all that care. But we know that that's not often the case. There's medical bias, there's bias against us because of our, ethnicity, because of our race, because of what we when we come to the doctor, the way they treat us is often different. I know with my dad, who died of cancer about almost 17 years ago, he and his doctor had sort of built this rapport, like bien amigueros, like whatever, And so whenever he would be like, I have this pain is happening, I have this pain in my leg and whatever. And the doctor was like, échate unos tequilas, whatever. And it would...
So dismissive.
Very dismissive. My dad, he was diagnosed 7 months later, he was dead. When they found his cancer so late because his doctor did not take him seriously. And in their case, it was, part of their rapport, but also just didn't take him seriously, didn't take his actual real pain seriously.
And I want to
go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, I want to add to that in terms of like how this relates to colorectal cancer, like very much disproportionately impacts Black and Latino communities. And I think one of the big issues there is really how uncomfortable it is for, all of us to talk about like colon health, digestive health,
right.
But especially some of the men in our community, some of the elders in our community. So I do, at least in my case, I make it a point to talk about all those uncomfortable things with people. I'm like, like my poop texture changed. I started getting bloated. Like I had to be within proximity of a bathroom. The more I talk about it, sometimes I'll see people kind of give me this look like, oh, wait, like
that's me. I have those things. Yeah. So that's why that's why it's so important that both of you have been sharing your experience, because at least for me too, Alex, I remember, following everything that was going on, the place that you're talking about in Pasadena, I had that same experience where they're like, they just kept pushing it. And I, just from viewing your experience, I called and like, I don't care. I'm willing to drive to the farther one. Like so what you're doing matters, you all telling your stories, and Michelle with colorectal cancer, because it is so taboo, or we have I keep dreading like, when I'm 44, I'm going to have to do that. But now I'm like, I kind of want to do it now. Like,
and something like wanted to say is like, I mean, Michelle's correct in that, in like the people that are affected, and because there's cultural things that, maybe a doctor didn't think about, is that like, there is inherent homophobia in our culture, so the idea of a man being like, like something's going on there, like, can you, I need to get a colonoscopy, I need to get whatever it is, like there's those fears, because then there's like the cultural stigmas that again, like lead to death. It can lead to death. And it's like, and it's frustrating, but that's why part of the advocacy we also, that's so important, is advocating for the people in our communities, whether it is our mom, our dad, our brother, whoever, like telling them, you know, you got to get over it. This is why this is important. It is exactly to Michelle's point, talking about your poo, talking about your stomach. I same, like chemo destroyed my guts. I was like making jokes about it because I was just like, listen, like my stomach is destroyed. I know when before I started chemo, I was like literally inviting anybody. I was like, come to my place, come look at my tits. I was like, come feel my tits.
Like,
come
this is what it looks
this
like.
is literally what it looks like. And I was like, anybody. I was like friends. I was sending videos to strangers of my tits. Literally, I was like, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what the lumps feel like. I was like, it's like kind of like a hard plum. If you see this orange, this is what it looks like. I was sending the video. I was having people in my house like looking at my boobs. I was like, if I was at the store and it came up, I was like, do you have a back room? I'll show you my tits right now. Like, I just like was like, it is so important to like be transparent. And like, all I could hope was that in something like that you can, in telling people, this is what my poo texture looks, how this changed, this is what my boob looked like, look, literally feel my boob, I don't care. Like, all I can hope is that then is in somebody's mind for the rest of their lives. And they're like, oh my God, my boob is doing this. And I remember Alex's boob, or I remember Michelle saying her poop did this. And now I can, you know, all those things matters when we share, when we speak to each other, when we're open, it is life-saving. I keep saying life-saving, but it really, that is literally what it is.
Literally save someone's lives. Okay, so to wrap things up, because we do a rapid set of questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be cancer related, but if it does, if this conversation inspires it to be related to cancer, certainly you can. The first question we ask is, what is one thing that gets your matraca, you know, your Mexican sound maker, that you're celebrating? And Alex, I'll start with you. What is one thing that gets your matraca that you're celebrating?
I am a big proponent of celebrating everything. The little things, the big things. Maybe I just want an excuse to like do whatever. But I really feel like everything that we have in life, everything that we're given is such a thing to celebrate. So like currently it's just, I just finished cancer treatment. That was my most recent one where I was like, I finished my cancer treatment. I'm cancer free. That was huge for me. But even like last year, right before my double mastectomy, I had a boob voyage, and I like threw a big ass.
I remember this. It was so lovely.
Yeah, I was like, let's say bye to the girls. They treated me right. Well, not the last year, but I was like, we gotta like, let's celebrate the life that these boobs had. Everything was boob everywhere. We were like, it was fun, and it just felt like important to me to do that. And so throughout the process, and with anything within work, within my personal life, if something feels good, it's worth even just like a glass of champagne or whatever it is you're comfortable drinking at home.
Yes, love.
But cancer free.
Yes, big matracas. That's a huge one. Michelle, what is one thing you're celebrating right now?
I think honestly, just community. Through this diagnosis, I really felt fortified in my friendships and the relationships that I made throughout my life. I saw so many people really show up for me in ways that I think genuinely surprised me. Especially because I think as adults, we kind of all get busy with our lives and, you know, maybe miss each other for long periods of time. But I was so grateful to see all the support for me and my partner during this time. And I also made like a group of new cancer friends through the resources that I found through the cancer community in LA. And it was really imperative to have people around me who understood that experience. It felt really special to have people who were not only politically aligned, but also able to really understand how intertwined the reality of politics were in our day-to-day lives and our access to treatment. So I really value that, and I celebrate that every day.
Yeah, I love that community, right? And Michelle, I'll stick with you to kick us off for the next rapid fire question, which is, what goes in la basura? What are you canceling? What are you done with? What goes in la basura for you, Michelle?
Oh God, so much of it. You know, I think I'm a little bit jaded. and Alex, you can feel free to jump in if you feel differently, but I had like a plethora of like little statements and mantras that I absolutely hated, that people would say to me when I was going through treatment. One of them was, surprisingly enough, like, "You've got this." And I just like, the way I explain it to people is like, I don't know if I've got this.
Yeah, it's not
And
about you
I'm
necessarily,
right.
right?
And
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel assured in that, but I remember, before I shared it publicly, I like called up a group of like really important people in my life. And I called up and everyone's like, okay, they all went into fix mode. They're like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna, and I really, there was finally one friend that I told, and maybe it was like my third or fourth call to like my close friends, and she just started crying. Like, she started sobbing with me. And I know some people don't like it when they have to take care of other people, but to me it felt like, okay, like, you feel the gravity of this. Like, we are both commiserating, we're grieving this together. And then like after we took a moment, we both started talking a little bit about like other things. But I think I just needed someone to feel what I was feeling and not necessarily jump into the fixing or attempting to minimize the severity of the situation.
Mhm. So,
Oh, yeah.
basura to some of those mantras. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
girl, I got a lot of like, you can't mess with the wrong chick. I got a lot of that shit, or a lot of like, you're a warrior, this and that, which I understand that like a lot of people. Oh my God, my mom, of course, my mom calls me, even though I put her on, whatever. Sorry. But I think a lot of people, that works for a lot of people, the like the whatever. I just always found it very silly, felt very Katy
I
Perry.
hate the cancer mess with the right or wrong bitch.
Yeah.
Alex, is there anything else that goes in la basura for you? This, and again, whatever, doesn't have to necessarily be about cancer, but
Yeah, for me, it's been it's something I'm still sort of wrestling with now, in that like cancer really changed my perspective in a lot of ways, which is, calm, it happens, right? It's of course it's going to do that. But the big thing that it made me confront was like I have intense people pleasing tendencies. And especially around my family, who are all very intense individuals. I come from a very intense family. Two sisters are Virgos. I'm a Cancer. Yes, Cancer with Cancer. And like everybody is like, I think I've always felt into, because they were so chaotic my whole life, that I was always like, peace. I was always just like, guys, it's no big deal. Or guys, do we have to yell about this? Whatever. So there were a lot of moments in which, honestly, my needs, my health, my mental health, just like my peace, my sanity, my stress levels were like not put at the number one priority, because like there's people in my life that sometimes they just can't help it. They just can't help being like who they are, right? And instead of being like, guys, I need you to all shut the fuck up and leave my house, or guys be like, hey, this is not acceptable. Can you please just like stop or whatever? Because I didn't have the energy to yell. I didn't have the energy to like fight. I didn't have the energy. Like, I think I let a lot of things slide, that now at the end, where I'm at now, I'm confronting a lot of it, and I'm having to have these more real conversations of like, we mentioned this off this, but like telling my mom it was not okay that you kept calling me fat throughout the process. I gained 25 pounds because you're on steroids. Like, who cares? Who cares why I was in cancer? Doesn't matter why I gained weight. But it's like, why the need to like still call me fat, still tell me that I'm like unattractive, that ay, la cara, mira cómo tienes la cara toda madreada, or whatever. Like, all of this shit, like, why are you still doing this while I'm literally trying to not die? And I've had to sit her down and be like, I understand who you are, and that like, I'm working through this, but that was over the line, and it was not, I was like, I will never get over it. I will never forgive you for it, just so you know. And it was more, not even it was more for me, just to be like, I'm never going to forgive or forget that. I love you. Mm-hmm. I'll always love you. So it was like, I think putting that in the basura of just like some of the treatment that I received, or the comments that I received, but more than anything, for my own sanity as I move through life, with or without, illness, is just to like always like make sure that my my stress, my body, my well-being, all of that is honored. And that like anybody that's going to disrupt that, I'm just like, no, you can't do that.
Yes,
Bye, you know?
we're putting in la basura the people-pleasing tendencies and focusing on what makes us feel well and good. Okay, as the very last one, Michelle, what is one way that you stay grounded, that you find some peace?
During this political climate?
I know.
I don't know. I think I feel really assured in knowing that I've done this twice now, right? And there is nothing that I feel like I can't navigate now. Not that like it's impossible for me to get sick or go through something hard or difficult again, but I feel like, especially in my relationships, right? Because cancer can make or break your relationships. It can really change the scope of how you interact with people. And I feel like instead of making me feel more isolated or more pulled away, I feel more determined to advocate for people. And especially now, we're in a political climate where a lot of people are in fear of going to see the doctor or going to a medical facility because of the raids that are happening, because of like the financial and economic burdens that they're facing. And so really, I am more invested now in trying to find ways for us to support each other, to find funding, to just really share and inform our community so that we can be a collectively healthier just group of people.
And Alex, what is one way that you stay grounded or get that peace that you're prioritizing now?
Yeah, it's like a few things, but like I think I echo what Michelle is saying, like showing up for my community, informing people, going to protests, going like handing out flyer, dropping off stuff, whatever I can do that I feel like I'm once again able physically to be a more active member in my community. These are always things that have always been important to me. But, when you're down for a year and you're just like, I can barely do anything, you're like, that was something that weighed on me a lot, especially seeing people that were mid-cancer treatment, children, women, men, like mid-cancer treatment being deported and, or stuck in their ICE facility, not able to access any healthcare, like things like that, where I'm like, well, no, like this is something that I have to figure out what my place in, how I can show up, how I can care for my community and advocate for not just like Latinos in this situation, but all people, like all people like facing these really, really it's a horrible time, and then like on a personal note, just like having really nice time with like my partner, with my friends, with like right now I'm like, going out and like, going to walk, I'm exercising. I've been like I started strength training because chemo just like destroyed me. And I was just like, I couldn't like pick up a bottle of water. And now I'm like, I'm up to like 15 pounds, just anything that makes me feel good in my body. I'm just like, that's what I'm doing. I'm like letting myself rest. I'm sleeping in when I can. I'm watching garbage TV. I'm just like soft life as wherever I can in such hard times, wherever you can find softness, give yourself the softness.
I was going to say, I love my naps and I love my food now because I could not eat anything for like a year. And then I eat it all now. I eat it all. I'll never take that for granted again.
Well, I'm inspired to let's go get food.
Yes.
Let's make a plan to eat delicious food. But thank you both. And I love that, Alex, of like in these hard times, let's find that softness. And again, I really appreciate both of you for sharing your experiences, your stories, your learnings, because I do think it could save lives. So with that, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and talk to y'all soon. Ciao.
Yes. Bye.
That was such a powerful and lengthy conversation. We're going to skip our rapid fire questions for today, for this week, because we've had our fabulous guests tackle them. And instead, we want to remind you that you can hang out with Delcy and I tomorrow. If you're listening to this episode, actually 2 days from now, I remember now that our episodes come out on Tuesdays. So on Thursday of this week, if you're listening to this episode it'll be on April 2nd, we are hosting a Podcasting 101 workshop. It's going to be at 5:00 Pacific time. You can go to tamarindopodcast.com, go to the event section. You'll find the link, or if you find us on social media, that's how you could sign up for this class. So that's one announcement that I want to give folks. And Delcy, I'll let you have the last word since we are about to take a spring break. Any reflections on the last conversations or whatever else you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you to our listeners for coming along on the ride, because I think you and I have carried a little bit of a different tone this season. The world has been a heavy place, and we've tried to keep it playful while also tackling some pretty strong and some pretty big topics here, and considering today's conversation, for instance. So thank you for sitting with us as we try to balance joy with reality of what's going on in the world. So saludos a la familia, everyone.
Yes, saludos y ponte un suéter. Ciao, bye. Tamarindo Podcast is hosted by Brenda Gonzalez and Delcy Sandoval. We're also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song, and Sonoro Media's Karina Riverroll provides production support. If you like what you hear, please take a few minutes to rate and review Tamarindo Podcast or share this episode with a friend. It really helps us grow. To get in touch with us, find us at tamarindopodcast.com. Thank you for listening.